Welcome to the News and Why It Matters. I am Sarah Gonzalez. Glenn, what was the top story for you?
Has to be the impeachment that I think now is fully in the hands of the Democrats, and I think they'll pay a high price for it. I think it's that.
All right, Stu.
Kind of the same thing on Mueller, looking at what he's saying kind of between the lines with his statement today and what he actually wrote in the report.
Okay, and Jason Howerton, social media guru.
So just to switch it up from these guys, I am so sick and tired of Chris Cuomo, and so I want to talk about that.
I mean, I wouldn't say that that's switching it up from them because they also are fed up with Chris Cuomo.
So sick
but
Chris Cuomo.
A lot to get into there. First, we want to thank our sponsor, Riduzone. So summer is upon us, and I know the struggle of losing weight, and you want to look nice by the beach or by the pool. I didn't care for the way that I looked about 12 years ago when I was much larger, large and in charge over there to the number 10.
You weren't as large as you were round.
Yes, rotund, I think would be a good.
Rubenesque.
But so I feel like I have a little bit of credibility on the subject matter of losing weight and keeping that weight off.
Stout would be one, I would say.
Perfect for the painters of the 1800s.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
Unfortunately, it's 2019, so if you don't want to look that way, you need Riduzone. It's just the metabolite in olive oil. It's called OEA. We actually produce it in our body, and it's supposed to send a signal to our brain that we're full, but we don't produce enough of it. And that is why you need Riduzone. So if you're struggling with weight loss, summer is coming up.
What do you take if your mind tells you you're full and you're like, I don't care, I'm just going to keep eating? Screw you, mind.
Cocaine.
Or therapy.
Okay, all right.
You can go to riduzone.com right now. Get 30% off of a 3-month supply with promo code THEBLAZE. That is RIDUZONE.com, promo code THEBLAZE. Glenn, I can't wait to get into the smaller stuff.
So I'm actually going to let Stu take most of my time because, man, I just yapped all day yesterday. But I think...
yesterday?
Yeah, just yesterday. I watched the show last night and I was like, good God, shut up, man. But anyway, I just want to point out that we have to look at this dispassionately. And we have to not just immediately get our back up because we know what the media is going to do. We know what the Democrats are going to do. And let them do it. In their arrogance, they will destroy themselves. And I don't think that this is necessarily a bad thing because there is nothing new. Mm-hmm. And so America has heard the worst. They've heard the worst. And everybody's like, even Democratic voters are like, get over it. So there's nothing new. If they decide to go through with impeachment, have at it. Let them wear that ring around their neck for the next 2 years. Because I don't think it works out well for them.
You mean politically?
Politically.
Yeah, I think that's probably true, and that's certainly the calculation they're making right now. I mean, it's a difficult time to start an impeachment proceeding. You're in the middle of an election, right? I mean, you have the ultimate impeachment effort coming up here in 18 months where you can throw the guy out of office.
And I think that that's all they're going for, because you can't get it through. It's not going anywhere in the Senate. No. So all they want to do is show to their group, hey, we're for impeaching this guy. We had the balls to impeach him. But the American people are not there. The average person is not clamoring for impeachment. If the economy changes, that'll change quickly.
Yeah, I mean, the American people, we saw the surveys that said that they were tired of the Russia investigation midway through. Yeah. They were tired of hearing about it. They were tired about impeachment. Now we get the results. There's nothing there.
And I would be the same way. If I was a Democratic operative, I would be like, winds in our sails. This was a great day for us. If I were a political operative that was good at my job, I would say, now shut up about it because there's nothing new here.
Yeah, one interesting quick political thing before we actually dive into the report. Because I think you're right. I think it's very risky politically, right? Like, I mean, especially if it just looks like you're just doing some partisan activity and screwing up the country, voters tend to punish that behavior. I will say if they don't do it, though, the person who's going to be empowered and the group that's going to be empowered are people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who's going to be able to come out and say, I can't believe they're not doing this. She's going to look like the only one who cares
Let them
enough.
play into her.
Yeah, I mean,
Let them play
I don't
into
want her anywhere near power, but her being the face of the Democratic Party is not necessarily a negative thing politically.
Correct.
So that's one thing. I wanted to kind of go into the report a little bit here because, Mueller's press conference was interesting in that he seemed to be trying to communicate something very directly, which was, look, I can't charge anybody here. However, maybe you guys over in Congress should look at some of this stuff. And that's certainly the way the Democrats are taking it and the way the media is taking it. But let's just go through this report here real quick, and I'll show you the example, because if you say that there's no, they like to say no collusion and no obstruction. That's what the president and his family have all been tweeting. When you look at it, I think you could fairly say that that Mueller pretty much thinks there was obstruction of justice. I mean, because you could tell by when you read the entire report some of the details here. Let me give you, this is the way that this is set up here when it comes to obstruction of justice. There's 3 tests that have to be passed. All 3 of these have to be true. So the 3 tests are, number 1, it has to be an obstructive act. Number 2, it has to be a nexus of an official proceeding. So number 1, something has to actually happen that's obstructive. Number 2, it has to be pointing to something that is part of the investigation. It can't just be, lying to the press, for example. And 3, the intent. His intent has to be, I'm trying to hide these things from the investigation. So that's how every one of these things is set up. If you remember when the report first came out, there's this big thing. There's 10 instances they investigated on obstruction of justice. And when you read the report, you realize that most of them, they essentially acquitted Trump on, or at least close to acquitting. Let me give you an example of how Mueller says there's no obstruction of justice here. This is on the Trump Tower report meeting. We all remember that one, of course, about dirt on Hillary Clinton. Here are the 3 tests. First of all, the Obstructive Act Test says each of these efforts by the president involved his communications team and was directed at the press. They would amount to obstructive acts only if the president, by taking these actions, sought to withhold information or mislead congressional investigators or the special counsel. The evidence does not establish that the president took steps to prevent the emails or other information about the meeting from being provided to Congress or the special counsel. The only evidence we have of the president even discussing the production of documents to Congress or the special counsel is the conversation on June 29th, where Hope Hicks recalled the president acknowledging that Kushner's attorney should provide emails related to the June 9th meeting to whomever he needed to give them to. Okay?
Not obstruction.
Not obstruction. Like, he's specifically telling you we did not clear this test here. Next one, nexus to an official proceeding. Quote, the evidence does not establish that the president sought to prevent disclosure of the emails in those official proceedings. Clearly, no. Next test, intent. The evidence does not establish that the president intended to prevent the special counsel's office or Congress from obtaining the emails setting up the June 9th meeting or other information about that meeting. So, I mean, this is as clear as it can get, right? Like, that whole meeting thing, it was a big story. He did not obstruct justice on this, and Mueller is telling you that quite directly. However, and I would say that was most of them, let's say 7 or 8 of the 10 felt like that, where he's basically saying, look, we don't have enough here, we don't have anything, he didn't do it, okay? However, let me give you one that it looks like he may have had some problems.
And this is where Mueller today was saying pretty much, I think, and I think you agree with me, that look, I can't do anything, but this is a political matter.
Right.
And so there are things in there, there's nothing new, but there are some things in there. He didn't say that, but he was telegraphing that to Congress. So this is an example of what the smoking gun is that they would impeach him on.
Yeah, and look at the different way he handles this as opposed to the other accusations. This is about President telling Don McGahn to get rid of Mueller, that whole situation. So, obstructive act, that test, he says, this evidence shows that the president was not just seeking an examination of whether conflicts existed, but instead was looking to use asserted conflicts as a way to terminate the special counsel. In other words, his excuse for making these calls does not add up with all the other evidence. Next up, nexus to an official proceeding. To satisfy the proceeding requirement, it would be necessary to establish a nexus between the president's act of seeking to terminate the special counsel and a pending or foreseeable grand jury proceeding. Substantial evidence indicates that by June 17, 2017, the president knew his conduct was under investigation by a federal prosecutor who could present any evidence of federal crimes to a grand jury. So again, another fail, right? Like he did not, this is another one they're saying basically he did it. And then the intent is, he's rough here. Substantial evidence indicates that the president's attempts to remove the special counsel were linked to the special counsel's oversight of the investigations that involved the president's conduct, and most immediately to reports that the president was being investigated for potential obstruction of justice. It goes on. The president called McGahn at home that night and then called him on Saturday from Camp David. The evidence accordingly indicates that news that an obstruction investigation had been opened is what led the president to call McGahn to have the special counsel terminated. And finally, there is also evidence that the president knew he should have not made those calls to McGahn. The president sought to use his official powers to remove the special counsel, and after the media reported the president's actions, he denied that he ever ordered McGahn to have the special counsel terminated and made repeated efforts to have McGahn deny the story. Those denials are contrary to the evidence and suggest the president's awareness that direction to McGahn could be seen as improper. You see the totally different feel between those two accusations. He is saying, there's at times they throw in little bits of evidence, they'll mention his argument, but then pretty much shoot it down. And so I think you get from the press conference referring to these sorts of allegations is that I think Mueller does think they should go through with an impeachment and check it out.
If I may, here's where I think the American people are. And I know you have one more point to make, but let me make this, and then you have to decide on what he's going to show you next. What the American people will say, if they're thinking at all and fair, they will say, okay, wait a minute. Donald Trump is a blowhard. Donald Trump is P.T. Barnum. Donald Trump gets angry and he wants to destroy things and break things at times, okay? But what this showed was he didn't do anything. And he was, what the American people will think to themselves, if they think fairly, this guy's under attack all the time. Before he even gets into office, they're leading marches against him. Mm-hmm. He knows the media is against him. He knows the whole deep state government feels like it's against him. So then he realizes, okay, they're going to do this special counsel thing. They're going to see if I was colluding with Russia. I wasn't. At this point, they know he didn't collude with Russia. But now obstruction. Now he's like, obstruction, now they're going on to something else, fire them. That's easy to understand. He knows, I'm playing his cards here. I'm not saying I agree with it or this is what really happened. I think it maybe is. He didn't collude. He felt under attack. They change it now to obstruction. Obstruction, I haven't done anything. Fire that guy because all he's trying to do is nail me. Fire him. I think that's what the American people will feel. The problem with this is this is not a court of law to where there is you broke into this house and you stole this. What impeachment is do the American people feel that he betrayed them? They will not feel that way if the economy continues this way. They feel that this is really unfair and you've gone too far. Shut up, sit down. So the Democrats just have to decide. It doesn't matter at all what the facts are. He's saying you can make the case because you're a political organization, not a court of law. So do the people want social justice? Do they want to take it out on this or not? And that's what the Democrats have to decide.
My question to you is going to be almost identical to the point you just made, which is if he went off the handle and said, I want this guy gone, I'm tired of this, and then his team comes back and says, like, Trump,
you can't
do that. And he's like, damn it, but he knows he can't do it. And he decides not to do anything about it. Is that really obstruction?
Well, no. The problem here is the lie. That's what they're saying, that he came back and said, no, I didn't say to fire him. Am I right on this?
He tried a definition of his thing where he said, I didn't say the word fired, I said get rid of him, which is kind of his distinction, which is minor. The other part about it is, and it's reported again later on in the McGahn part of this, is that he was trying to get McGahn to basically get a post-dated memo that said his version of events and to get it filed so that there would be a paper trail that he didn't ask him to fire.
And that's clearly wrong.
And Mueller look, I don't know. I have no idea what happened. I wasn't there, but I can tell you that Mueller, by reading his report, you can tell he thinks that actually happened. McGahn is a pretty good witness. He had no real motivation and he still hasn't turned on Trump. Like he's still, not, Trump is telling him don't go testify in front of Congress, and he's not. Like he's still generally aligned with him. It's a difficult thing because this question, I think, is when you come to impeaching a president, my thought is that the standard needs to be pretty high. We have elections every 4 years, so you should probably just be able to remove these people in elections. I don't like the idea of, unless it's something super serious, but there is that sort of idea. We did do this with Bill Clinton, as we all remember. And one of the things you'll remember from the famous press conferences, if you ask what's the famous press conference, people will say, I did not have sex with that woman when he said that. But what we forget here, and it's important at some level when we're talking about the context of what happened and what is being accused when it comes to Don McGahn, what did he say next? Here's the clip.
I did not have sexual relations with that woman, Miss Lewinsky. I never told anybody to lie, not a single time, never.
I mean, that is exactly what they're saying he did in this, and they have a decent amount of evidence saying that that was essentially what happened. Now, look, it's a complicated thing. You can always find differences between these two things. I don't think if I'm in Congress, I think I would go for impeachment. I don't think it's the right move. I mean, especially with an election right around the corner. But I mean, the Democrats are probably going to go that direction, or at least as close to it as they possibly can to keep their base happy.
This is trying to nullify an election. That's really what this is about. Because they accepted that from Bill Clinton. It was a lie. He lied, okay? And they said, well, he lied about sex, okay? Well, the president didn't lie about this collusion with Russia and what was happening, and that's what they were investigating. Mm-hmm. What he did was, in a temper tantrum, he said, do this, and then when they said, you can't do that, he was like, okay, well, then write this, and he did tell them to lie there. But all of us, this was our point during the election. Mm-hmm. This guy's not trustworthy. He's lying to you. You know he's lying to you about this, this, and this. People accepted it. So the electorate, the people who voted for Donald Trump, already baked in, yeah, he's not going to tell me the truth. So when it comes to impeachment, it's not criminal. It's political. When it comes to impeachment, the people have already accepted his lies.
I would say, last word is, the president would be well served to stop worrying about the press so much. Yeah. So much of what he is in trouble for, or potentially in trouble for from this report, is him trying to lie to the press, trying to get in fights with the press, getting angry at what the press is saying. He's so obsessed with the press that he winds up walking down roads that I think in a normal day, I'm sure he wouldn't go down. I mean, look, I don't think it's impeachable, a lot of the stuff that's in here, but it's not pretty. I mean, he doesn't act as someone who is trying to live to a higher standard than a person that you'd work with. Or if you hired an employee who did these things, you would be pissed off. And there's no reason for him to do these things. He's done a lot of really positive things in office, and I wish he would just focus on that instead of the nonsense.
If you hired somebody that does things like this, and you knew going in, this is what they did, it's your fault. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's your fault. Yeah,
great point.
You hired him.
Yeah. All right, back in a minute.
Remember how many times did we say during the election, you're teaching him?
Before we get back into the conversation, I want to thank our sponsor, realestateagentsitrust.com. Glenn, you found that there are a ton of real estate agents out there who
have no idea what they're doing.
They just do it on the side.
Yeah, they like a Mercedes and they like to wear nice clothes, and they show up and they're like, we'll blow up some balloons and I'll invite some of my friends over to your house. And they don't sell your house. There's a lot of people who are like, I'm going to do this part-time. No, don't. There is an art to selling a house. It is a skill, and this is your biggest investment. Can you imagine? E.F. Hutton, when they talk, you listen, people listen. Okay, that's because you're investing money, and they're trying to convince you, hey, we really have something to say. We're just going to somebody's cousin who's doing this part-time? This is your biggest investment. So we found the agents around the country that A, have the sensibilities that you do. They all are fans of the Blaze and the show, and they're the best in the business. Some of these guys, I mean, the differences between agents are incredible. The ones who know how to do it, many of them make more than every other real estate agent combined in your area. They sell more houses than everyone else combined. Oh. There's a reason for it. If you want to find that person to buy or sell your next home, realestateagentsitrust.com.
Glenn, I want to pick back up on something that you said before the break, which was the American people have already baked in who Donald Trump was.
Yeah, so what the conversation should be, if we were a logical, reasonable people, would be, okay, we knew this going in. We knew that he had character issues. We knew that he was a blowhard, P.T. Barnum. We knew that he was a salesman. That's who he was. That's part of the reason we liked him, is because he was a salesman, okay? And you knew everything he said had to be taken with a wink or a nod, okay? Now, have we changed? Because we accepted this exact behavior when he was running. So has the American voting public changed and said, you know what? I want a priest. I want the Pope. I don't want a president. Well, I don't think they've changed.
Look at the poll numbers.
Correct.
I mean, it's a little up. Like,
right.
A lot of that's the economy, but
correct. They have not changed. So the conversation, it would be fine to impeach, in my opinion, because it's not criminal. It's fine to impeach if the American people went, you know what? I don't care how good the economy is. We were wrong. We should have had somebody of character. But nobody's saying that. Nobody's talking about that case. This is all nothing but politics. And so by doing this, all you have to do, because we're already in the campaign, yeah. All you have to do is just say, if you're on the Democratic side, we think lies are bad. We think you need to be able to trust. And we said this during the election. We say it again now. America, you have a choice. You can correct this error, but they will never do that, because then they're going to be held to a standard of, are you guys a bunch of liars too? Because I think America thinks that almost everybody on both sides, nothing but liars. We accept lies because we don't expect anyone in Washington or on television to tell us the truth.
True. And I think, honestly, I think there's a reason why Nancy Pelosi, who is having to be the voice of reason among the Democrats and holding the door shut from the impeachment flood coming through. Mm-hmm. And it's the way Trump has rallied his base since he got elected, his voters, his supporters, is to be constantly under attack, under assault by the media, by Democrats. He's always punching back at something, sometimes by his own doing, whether it's a trolling tweet that he knows exactly how the media is going to react, so then he has a plan of how he's going to spin that to use in his favor. So if they go forward and impeach him now, well, going into 2020, how much more under assault can you be as a president?
And
right?
Even if the economy goes south, think of this. I remember when Bill Clinton, I was on the air when Bill Clinton said those words. And I was against Bill Clinton. I felt he was lying to us. Now remember, this is before the blue dress, okay? So when he said that, even I remember feeling, man, boy, you got balls on you if you're saying that. Because he looked at the camera, not once. And you kind of felt this movement before the blue dress of, you know what, get off his back. He's got to do the work of the American people. Mm-hmm. If the economy starts to go down, if this president is smart, he will do that, knowing there is no blue dress. And I think the American people will say, media, Democrats, shut the hell up. We're in trouble. And this guy had it going, and you're just talking about nonsense.
All right, back in a minute.
Possibility, though, of Vladimir Putin in a blue dress. If they should show up.
I know.
It's a little
and
worse.
Just think, we haven't even gotten to Chris Cuomo yet.
Oh, we haven't
even gotten to Chris Cuomo yet.
Yes.
We've got to get to Chris Cuomo in overtime. Oh. And if you are not yet subscribed to Blaze TV, you're going to miss it. think of all the fun that you're going to miss out on when we talk about Chris Cuomo. Luckily for
Yesterday's
you,
overtime was longer than the show.
it was, see? Luckily for you, yeah, that's so much content out there that you're not getting. You can use promo code NEWS and get $10 off of your annual subscription.
Chris Cuomo, call me and I'll get you a login to watch.
You gotta do it. You gotta
for
watch.
free. Chris gets
For free, yeah, he gets to watch.
For the Chris Cuomo.
Yes.